Welcome to the Quiet Strength Podcast, Fathers in a Failing World. I'm Giacomo Knox. We live in a time when the role of fathers is often misunderstood, sometimes ignored, and occasionally even ridiculed. Yet throughout history, strong fathers, sometimes loud but often quiet, have held families, communities, and entire civilizations together. This podcast explores that quiet strength. Each episode brings together thoughtful conversations about fatherhood, responsibility, faith, forgiveness, and the challenges men face in raising the next generation. Some of these conversations are inspired by research, history, and emerging technology that helps us explore important new ideas in new ways. This is an independent production, built by people who believe that strong families and strong fathers still matter. As the show grows, we are always interested in connecting with organizations and partners who want to help us support meaningful conversations about fatherhood and legacy. But at the heart of every episode is a simple question. What does it mean to be a good father in a world that sometimes feels like it's falling apart? This is the Quiet Strength Podcast. Let's begin.
When you break an arm, the x-ray gives you this really clean, jagged white line. It's binary.
Right, it's either broken or it's not.
Exactly. The doctor points to the glowing film, puts you in a cast, and gives you a timeline. But today, on this deep dive, we are trying to x-ray an invisible wound.
And good luck with that, Rep.
Seriously.
Yeah.
We're looking into the profound, often totally unspoken impact of father-child estrangement. And as you're about to see, the diagnostic machine for family trauma is just, it's completely broken.
It really is. We are navigating an emotional landscape that completely defies simple medical imaging. You are essentially trying to quantify a ghost.
A ghost, yeah, that's a perfect way to put it.
Because mapping the exact impact of someone who simply wasn't there, or maybe who was there but, emotionally inaccessible, it requires a completely different set of tools.
Right.
It's diagnostic muddy waters.
The symptoms often disguise themselves as personality traits or relationship patterns or even, and we'll get into this, spiritual awakenings. Which is exactly why we've pulled a really, frankly, highly unusual stack of sources today to serve as our map.
Yeah, these are definitely not your standard clinical text.
Not at all. We're looking at the archives of an independent reality TV pilot that attempted to bridge a decades-long silence. Then, a deeply complex academic memoir about tracking down this mystical, estranged parent. And finally, a classic 18th century fairy tale that might actually be secretly responsible for how we view family loyalty today.
I know these sources seem wildly disconnected on the surface. You've got different centuries, different mediums entirely.
Totally different worlds.
But they all orbit the same really dense gravitational pull, which is the human desperation to resolve the incomplete father figure.
And for you listening right now, this exploration is intensely personal. Everyone has a father.
Right, whether you knew him or not.
Exactly. Whether that figure was a grounding presence, a painful void, or somewhere in the chaotic middle, that fundamental dynamic acts as the invisible architecture of your life.
Oh, absolutely. It shapes how you process authority, how you establish personal boundaries.
Yes, and the specific ways you define and accept love.
It acts as the ultimate psychological blueprint. And when that blueprint is flawed or just completely missing, the child is left to construct their own foundation.
Usually using incredibly faulty materials, right?
Exactly. And sometimes, people go to extreme lengths to force a structural retrofit later in life.
Which brings us to a man who literally put his attempt to redraw that blueprint on camera. Let's look at the reality TV pilot, A Week with My Father.
Created by Giacomo Knox.
Yes, Giacomo Knox. And Knox didn't hold a casting call for this project. He used his own life. The pilot documents his actual reunion with his father, James, after an unbelievable 33-year separation.
33 years. Just think about that.
I can't even fathom it. The premise was a one-week visit, structured sort of as a social experiment, aiming for forgiveness and a new baseline relationship.
But what's really fascinating here is that Knox was driven by something much larger than his own catharsis. He specifically noted the escalating problem of fatherless homes across all racial backgrounds.
It's a massive issue.
It is. To understand the weight of what Knox was attempting, you really have to look at the statistical reality of this absence. The data on fatherless homes paints a staggering picture.
Especially when you look at the prison population, right?
Exactly. The correlation with the prison population is undeniable. A massive percentage of inmates in state and federal facilities grew up without a father in the home.
Wow.
We were talking about statistics suggesting that youth from fatherless homes are significantly more likely to end up incarcerated. It's essentially a systemic pipeline.
So Knox wasn't just trying to heal his own heart.
No, he was trying to model an intervention for a statistical crisis.
He was trying to interrupt the pipeline. Because in the first episode, Knox actually says, "I'm too old to put my fingers in my ears."
That's a powerful line.
It really is. It's this raw admission that the coping mechanism of just ignoring the void had expired. But, okay, let's unpack this. The vehicle he chose for this intervention is baffling to me.
The reality TV format.
Yes. Knox teams up with producer Julie House and her company Western Boy LLC, produced the show alongside director Andre Mayers. Now, House went on record saying they wanted the show to be non-exploitative and family-oriented.
Which sounds like a noble mission statement.
Sure, but it severely clashes with her resume.
Oh, drastically.
Julie House previously worked on shows like Scare Tactics and Who's Your Daddy? I mean, those programs are the absolute pinnacle of manufactured exploitative trash TV.
They really are.
Attempting to create a genuine healing reunion on a reality PV set is like trying to plant a delicate flower in a toxic waste dump, or, doing open heart surgery in a circus tent.
Right, because the environment is inherently designed for spectacle.
Exactly, conflict and ratings. But the emotional procedure Knox is attempting requires extreme, sterile caution. I just have to question if the medium of reality TV is fundamentally incapable of handling the weight of this trauma.
Well, the cynical view certainly suggests the medium would destroy the message. You would assume the cameras ruin the authenticity, turning a private moment into a performance.
Right.
But consider the psychological mechanism of a camera crew. Ironically, the highly artificial structure of a TV production might provide the exact psychological guardrails required for an event this volatile.
Wait, really?
Guardrails. Think about it. A 33-year reunion is terrifying. Without structure, the emotional floodgates open and people regress to their most defensive, combative states.
So the cameras aren't there to capture the drama.
They're actually there to act as a referee.
Oh, wow.
Precisely. When you introduce a production schedule, a director like Andre Mayers literally calling the shots an itinerary and the watchful eye of a lens, you force boundaries onto a dynamic that desperately lacks them.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
The participants know they're being observed, which regulates their nervous systems. It keeps everyone on their best behavior long enough for the door to open safely. It allows them to model vulnerability in a contained space.
Fostering empathy rather than just explosive trauma dumping.
Exactly.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. What blows my mind is the timeline of this project's impact. Knox pitches this pilot at the 2011 New York Television Festival,
Right.
where it actually secures a distribution deal with Germany's Red Arrow Entertainment. But it doesn't just air once and vanish. Fast forward to 2022, and this exact same project is screening at the More Than Decent Film Fest in Newberry, South Carolina.
That's a huge gap.
It is. And it wins an Outstanding Achievement Award for Television Pilot Program at the World Film Carnival in Singapore. We are talking about an indie pilot maintaining global relevance for over a decade.
And while the series hasn't landed on a major network yet, its availability on platforms like YouTube has allowed it to find a very dedicated, highly engaged audience.
Yeah, the online footprint is wild.
If you look at the Stage 32 forum discussions from the early 2010s, the viewer response is visceral. People like Henry Rivers wrote these extensive emotional posts thanking Knox for validating the hidden damage of child abandonment.
Knox even jumped into those threads himself. He pointed out how ubiquitous this dynamic is. He referenced Lars Ulrich from Metallica, noting how openly the drummer discusses the friction with his own father.
Right, because it transcends background.
Exactly. It doesn't matter if you are an indie filmmaker, a heavy metal icon, or an anonymous forum poster. The wound operates the exact same way. Knox claimed the project influenced countless men and women to rethink their own estranged relationships.
Which is an incredible legacy for a pilot.
It is, but I have to push back a little on the premise of the show itself.
Let's hear it.
Can a highly structured, one-week filmed reunion actually cure 33 years of absence?
Whoa.
I mean, it feels like slapping a Band-Aid on a bullet wound and declaring the patient healed.
Yeah.
Why is a single week of managed interaction from 2011 still winning awards in 2022?
Because it isn't a cure. It's the starting gun for a lifelong marathon.
Okay.
A week doesn't erase 3 decades of neurological and emotional adaptation to an absent parent. The reason a project from 2011 continues to win awards a decade later is because the cultural starvation for this specific healing roadmap remains entirely unaddressed.
Starvation is the right word.
We have an abundance of media showing families tearing each other apart, right? But there's a massive deficit of media showing how to safely re-engage after the fracture. Knox provided an instruction manual for a problem that society is still actively failing to solve.
That's so true. Knox's show gives us the illusion that boundaries can be perfectly orchestrated by a production crew. It models the ideal scenario.
But what happens when there is no crew?
Exactly. When the camera shuts off, you don't get a perfectly timed reconciliation. You just get the chaotic, unfiltered reality of who your parent actually is and the genetic legacy they left you.
Which is exactly the collision Wendy Reynolds ran into.
Yes. Her essay, Awakening, published in the academic journal Intertext, acts as the perfect counterweight to Knox's structured ideal.
Wendy's story is the messy, untelevised reality of seeking out the missing piece of your psychological blueprint.
So, Wendy travels through these damp, green mountains and desolate small towns to finally visit her estranged father, Bob Boyd, for the first time as a cognizant adult. She arrives expecting some level of clarity.
And she definitely does not get that.
Not even close. Bob, who, by the way, speaks with this thick, gravelly Boston accent, announces that he is a mystic. He tells her he has experienced a Kundalini awakening.
Right, and for context, if we connect this to the bigger picture, in certain Eastern spiritual frameworks, Kundalini is described as a dormant, coiled serpent energy resting at the base of the spine.
Okay.
When awakened, it supposedly travels up the chakras, resulting in profound spiritual liberation and a feeling of universal connectedness.
So Bob tells Wendy this energy surged up his spine, filling his entire being with a blinding, powerful white light. He claims it connected him to the pure frequencies of the universe.
And his community validated this, didn't they?
Oh, completely. The yoga community he associated with celebrated his awakening and encouraged him to lean into this new hypersensitive state. But Wendy takes this vivid narrative back home and shares it with her stepfather, who happens to be a psychiatric nurse.
Oh, and the contrast in their diagnostic approaches is just whiplash-inducing.
It's night and day.
The stepfather views Bob's behavior not through the lens of ancient mysticism, but through the clinical rigidity of Western medicine.
He literally pulls out the DSM-IV, the Diagnostic Manual for Psychiatric Disorders, and starts reading off symptoms.
Right.
He points to Bob's claims of universal connection as grandiose delusions. He labels Bob psychotic, suggesting he is deep in the throes of manic depressive or bipolar illness. He tells Wendy, "You're not going back there. The man is insane."
It perfectly illustrates the terrifying overlap between spiritual transcendence and clinical mania.
Because they look so similar from the outside.
Exactly. For Bob, this white light experience gave him a profound sense of loving kindness and purpose. But the external reality of his life told a completely different story.
Yeah, his life was a mess.
The same energy that made him feel spiritually awakened also wrecked his academic career. It caused severe chronic headaches, destroyed his impulse control, and led to a highly unstable life, marked by constant moving and 4 failed marriages.
The euphoria came at a devastating functional cost.
Exactly. And Wendy is caught right in the middle.
She desperately wants the mystical father, not the mentally ill one. I mean, who wouldn't? The Kundalini narrative gives his absence a noble, cosmic excuse.
It's much easier to process.
Right. But years later, at age 25, Wendy experiences her own undeniable awakening, and the setting she describes is incredibly grim.
It's not a yoga retreat, that's for sure.
No. She's in a seedy parlor getting a tattoo from a mangy artist. The guy has a weeping wound on his arm, sores on his hands, missing teeth, and this bizarre tattoo of twin fetuses on his bloated stomach.
It is a brutally visceral scene, completely devoid of the serene, mountaintop aesthetics usually associated with spiritual enlightenment.
Exactly. It's gritty and high risk. But in the middle of this environment, the buzz of the tattoo needle triggers something inside Wendy. She suddenly feels every prick sending a literal white light of energy flowing up her spine.
Just like her father describes.
Just like Bob. She describes feeling ecstatic, glowing, floating above the room. It's pure, unadulterated bliss. But months later, the euphoria shatters and the panic sets in.
The crash.
The crash. She finally seeks out a therapist who connects the dots between her periods of extreme high energy, her impulsive, risky behavior, and her subsequent crushing depressive crashes. The therapist diagnoses Wendy with bipolar disorder.
It is a profound and honestly terrifying full circle moment. She sought out her estranged father, hoping to fill the cracks in her own identity, only to realize that the white light they share isn't a mystical connection to the universe.
It's a medical condition.
It is a shared neurochemical instability. She inherited the very fire that burned down her father's life.
Which completely subverts the media narrative of the tearful healing reunion we see on TV. We are conditioned to expect life lessons and warm embraces when we reconnect with an estranged parent.
But in reality, Wendy didn't get a life lesson.
No, she got a mirror reflecting a deeply complicated genetic legacy that she now has to manage for the rest of her life.
And yet what Wendy achieves through this diagnosis is a far more durable form of healing than a tearful hug.
How so?
She cites research by Valanciut and Thampi, which explores the fragile boundary between spiritual awakening and mental illness. The researchers suggest the dividing line often comes down to normal social integration.
Ah, okay.
Bob couldn't maintain his integration. His marriages and career crumbled. Wendy recognizes this danger in herself. By accepting her bipolar diagnosis, she achieves a massive cognitive shift regarding her father.
She stopped seeing him as the villain who maliciously abandoned her, and she stopped seeing him as the enlightened guru. She realizes his family tree is saturated with schizophrenia, depression, and addiction. He didn't leave because Wendy wasn't worthy of love. He left because his brain was quite literally misfiring.
Which neutralizes the core trauma of abandonment. Seeing an estranged father, not as a villain or a mythical figure, but as a deeply flawed human being, is the true, unglamorous first step to acceptance.
She actually references Ellen Forney's graphic memoir, Marbles, finding solace in the idea that you can embrace the unique creative energy of a bipolar mind while still managing the immense clinical dangers.
It's a delicate balance.
Wendy realizes that if she completely strips her father of his Kundalini narrative, she destroys his only source of self-worth. But if she ignores the medical reality of his illness, she endangers her own life.
The ability to hold those two conflicting truths simultaneously, that her father is both a damaged man and a well-intentioned spirit, is the ultimate marker of breaking a generational curse.
But holding those conflicting truths requires incredibly strong personal boundaries. And setting boundaries with parents is historically agonizing because we are culturally programmed to do the exact opposite.
We really are.
Which brings us to the root of this programming, the classic 18th century fairy tale Beauty and the Beast by Jean-Marie Le Prince de Beaumont.
This raises an important question because it is the foundational text for how Western culture views the obligations of a child.
Forget the modern animated adaptations with the singing candelabras.
Yeah, no dancing teapots here.
The original 1756 text is a stark, brutal examination of family duty and absolute sacrifice. The setup is bleak. The merchant loses his entire fortune, gets lost in the woods, and stumbles upon the beast's palace.
And makes a terrible mistake.
Right, as he leaves, he steals a single rose for his youngest daughter, Beauty. The beast catches him and demands a life in exchange for the stolen property.
A life for a flower.
Exactly. The merchant goes home, tells his children about the death sentence, and Beauty's older sisters immediately blame her for asking for the rose. But Beauty's reaction is what's truly disturbing.
She doesn't just agree to take her father's place.
No. She willfully and gladly volunteers to be the sacrifice.
Her dialogue in the original text lays bare the expectation. She states, "I will deliver myself up to all his fury. My death will save my father's life and be a proof of my tender love for him."
So what does this all mean? She is acting as the ultimate martyr to fix her parents' colossal failure. Her father is the one who went bankrupt, got lost, and committed theft.
Yet Beauty has to pay.
And her response is, "Let me die so you can live, and that will finally prove that I am a good daughter." To me, this is the absolute pinnacle of toxic codependency. It is the exact kind of parentification and generational trauma that modern therapy and modern dialogues like Knox's show are trying to unspool.
The historical context here is vital. In the 18th century, children were largely viewed as an extension of the parents' property and legacy.
Wow.
The fairy tale wasn't written as a warning against toxic codependency. It was written as an instructional manual for virtuous behavior.
That is so dark.
It is. These deeply ingrained ancient myths silently instruct us, from the time we are toddlers, that children essentially owe their parents their very lives.
And the father's reaction in the story makes it even worse. The text says he is charmed by her generous offer.
Charmed.
He puts up a mild protest, but ultimately he lets his teenage daughter ride off to a monster's castle to pay his debt. He literally puts her on the horse.
And the narrative architecture of the story fiercely rewards this complete lack of boundaries. When Beauty arrives, the beast doesn't eat her. She finds a luxurious library with a book inscribed in gold. Welcome, Beauty, banish fear. You are queen and mistress here.
So her martyrdom is rewarded.
Exactly. Her willingness to act as a human shield for her father's mistakes earns her a magical palace, boundless wealth, and eventually a handsome prince. The subtext is clear. If a child simply sacrifices enough of their own well-being to absorb their family's trauma, they will be magically rewarded by the universe.
But in the real world, the universe doesn't hand you a magical library for absorbing your parents' trauma.
No, it certainly doesn't.
You get a seedy tattoo parlor and a crippling bipolar diagnosis like Wendy Reynolds. Or you get 33 years of deafening silence and a statistical likelihood of ending up in the prison pipeline like the men Giacomo Knox was trying to reach.
Right.
The fairy tale demands the child fix the parent. Knox is a week with my father, asks the father and son to meet as equals, as adults, governed by the safety of a camera lens. And Wendy's story requires the hardest lesson of all, accepting that you cannot fix the parent at all.
You can only understand the machinery of their brokenness, and in doing so, finally understand yourself.
It highlights a massive evolution in our cultural coping mechanisms.
We are slowly moving from the romanticized martyrdom of the 18th century to the clinical, boundary-driven reality of the 21st.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want you to look at the invisible x-rays of your own family dynamics. Are you still operating under the influence of an ancient fairy tale, waiting for your personal sacrifices to magically fix the people who raised you?
It's a hard question to ask.
It is. Or can you accept the messy, complicated, sometimes painful human reality that the people who built your psychological blueprint were just flawed architects doing the best they could?
You know, the persistence of this wound tells us something critical about who we are. Our craving for father-figure reconciliation is so intense that we encode it into our oldest surviving myths. We write dense academic memoirs trying to intellectualize it, and we consume it as entertainment in reality television.
Or obsessed with it.
But if the pain of this absence is so universally devastating, perhaps the ultimate social experiment isn't just reuniting estranged families on camera after decades apart.
What is it then?
Perhaps the real challenge is forcing ourselves to completely reimagine our societal structures, our mental health resources, and our community safety nets, so that these catastrophic 33-year separations stop happening in the first place.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. For more information or to become a sponsor, please go to our website at www.newberryfilmworks.com. We'll get right back to you. Stay tuned for the next episode, coming up very, very soon.